All right, let's hope this works. Greetings, viewer. This is Slingshot Law here. Here is my introduction to my Benjamin Akela and some basic modifications I've done to it to improve its shootability, at least as far as I'm concerned. Starting out with the case, this is a case I got at a local police supply shop. It is, if I can find the tag, made by Condor. It is the 36-inch rifle case. It is exactly the perfect size for the Akela here. It is about 36 inches wide. I think the actual rifle itself is 34, 35. It's about 12 inches deep, whereas the rifle with the scope that I have on here is probably about 11 or so. It's also deep, I guess deep enough in this direction to accommodate the bipod there. Holy crow. All right, let's get this out of the way for just a second. Back to the case. It's ridiculous how much Velcro, how much nylon, how many clips there are on this thing. These are all mollet, or moye, I suppose, if you're French. Attached, let's see, clean kit and things in here. Ammo in there, plenty of business. But importantly, this side pocket is just perfect for keeping your pump in if you operate that way. So that's a nice feature. Getting everything in there all at once. No need to carry a separate case. Perfect. It's heavy as hell though. All right, that was fun, wasn't it? Now, first criticism of the Akela as it comes from the factory is the location of the front swivel stud or swivel sling, or the little, I don't even know what you call it, the little brass insert for attaching the tiny little Picatinny rail. It supposes, or the good people at Benjamin suppose, that a single point of attachment will be enough right here. That's crazy because it's just going to rotate around when you have it attached, and in fact that's what it does. So what I did was actually I drilled one mistakey hole over here to try to attach this sling stud right here, which is what I have the bipod attached to. That was too far forward. That meant the whole bipod assembly was way too far forward, and that was kind of off kilter and at the very least funny looking. So I ended up drilling this back a little bit. If you decide to drill your own hole in it, for God's sake, make sure you know exactly how deep you're going, because you do not want to go into the reservoir here. When it's pressurized, you'll kill everybody in the neighborhood. Or your wife will kill you, whichever. So that's criticism number one, but that's fixed, by the way. All right, next criticism is straight from the factory, and this is just how it's designed. This isn't any kind of defect or anything like that. Part of it actually is my fault for having bought such a ridiculous overkill scope for the air rifle here. This is how it's attached. You have this one point here, and it's, granted it's going to be tightened down when you're using it, but when you're adjusting the scope, any kind of movement that you have, any kind of input that you have into the scope, it's going to bounce the sight around a little bit. So that's kind of frustrating. Not much I can offer to help that. However, one thing that I can offer as a slight solution to the barrel shroud wearing against this this band here is just putting a little piece of aluminum foil tape here. You'll note that when this thing is in place, or if you ever take off the barrel shroud, there's going to be a lot of wear. A lot of this, the paint from this aluminum band here is going to show up on the exterior of this. That's why I put that there. I think it also takes up a little room, reduces whatever kind of play there might be between this barrel shroud and the band. There is actually a little bit of a gap here between the shroud and that band. I think it's just visible. So you do have a point of contact there. It's nice to be able to keep the barrel stable. All right, next point of criticism, and something I've been able to fix, is this this adjustable cheek riser here. This too is only attached right at this point, so ooh, yes, very fancy. It rises, and look, you can set it into place, but the problem is that it's very flexible. It's not at all stable feeling. What I did, I had a piece of scrap wood here. I ripped it down on the table saw. I made it just to the right thickness of where I want this thing raised up, just big enough to fit within that little slot there. So that's fine. That's a nice tight mount there. That's not going to go anywhere. Another critique I had is on the cocking lever. When I got it, there was a lot of slop up and down when you move this thing. Just in this direction, up and down, there was a lot of slop there. It just felt very loose. So I've managed to do a little bit of work on the inside here, just to tighten that up a little bit, reduce that free play. And let me get off the rest of the screws here to show you. Is that 1, 2, 3, 4. This is always a pain in the ass. All right, figured it out. So that comes off. So as it comes, all right, this pin is free as far as this lever goes. The lever is expected to rotate around that pin, and the pin is expected to remain stationary in that hole there in the receiver. I guess that's the receiver. What do you call this thing? Anyway, I realized that the slop was coming from here. This hole in the cocking lever was too big for that pin. So I put a little bit of krazy glue in there after I had determined how high up I needed to have the cocking lever sitting on that pin. So now it is just fine. There's no slop on it back and forth. This is perfectly centered on that pin, and the pin rotates in the hole rather than having the cocking lever rotate around the pin. It's a much smoother action at this point. And I should also point out that I'm going to show you, there were quite a few burrs. I think this is rather soft steel. There were some burrs on the edges of this thing. I took some 320 grit sandpaper, so smooth that out a little bit. Ditto on the inside of this block. Just got the edges down a little bit. Put a fair amount of silicone grease in there, and everything seems to be fine after that. All right, next I did a couple things on the inside to adjust how the trigger was behaving. Let's see if I can get this out. No? Yeah, there's not a lot of comedy in this, so I'm going to pause it and get back to you. All right, and I had it a second ago. All right, it's like I finally ate enough prunes. Okay, so taking this apart, when I had punched out the pin for the trigger here, I noticed when getting it back in, the pin was just flopping right back out again. There wasn't enough tension to hold the pins in place. So again, a little piece of aluminum tape. Before I did that, one of the reasons I wanted to take this trigger assembly out is because, again, too much slop left and right on this trigger. So hard to see, but I did put a little washer, tiny little washer on that side. And yeah, there's another one that I put in just in there as well. So a washer on both sides takes up a lot of that slop, makes it nice, tight, well, I wouldn't say tight, but certainly gets rid of a lot of that wiggle room there. The safety, what the hell is this? This is just a complete mess. So there's no detent to hold it in place. It just flops around. So that's kind of ridiculous. Got a solution for that. Just a little piece of what looks to be about 1/4 inch foam. Just jam that in there, right over the safety. Poke it into place a little bit, and that at least stops it from flopping around. You still don't get any kind of detent, so sort of click it into place, but at least it's a much smoother slide and it won't rattle around anymore. Next after that is over here. I noticed, that's not cocked. Okay, so pulling on this, this bar, which is basically where the trigger is meant to be if you've got something like a Kratos, this whole assembly here just moves the trigger forward so that it can be a bullpup. Anyway, I noticed that this bar here was sliding up and down a lot on this. I added another tiny little washer here. That's helped. Also, what's helped immeasurably is just having, again, another little piece of foam, a little piece of foam rubber just jammed up under there to take up some of that extra slop, pushing that down to the bottom of its hole. And again, no more slop. It's nice. It's a much smoother pull, much more easy to tell when you're about to break. So that's something I would strongly recommend, is at least putting this foam here and maybe that little washer as well. All right, another critique I can offer is the wood. While this is nice walnut, you can tell that there's some weird staining on mine over here, and that's not just regular old nice sort of quilting that you might find in some woods. I think there's been a little bit of an epoxy fill in some of the cracks here. The woodwork itself is actually pretty sloppy too. If you notice here that the way this is cut, it sort of varies in thickness. So this is definitely not something that's done on a CNC. This is something that's done with probably some kind of plunge router and a set of jigs to make the form. I mean, it's generally cut very nice, but just when you have a straight line that's not actually straight, it kind of shows. So while this is a good bargain, I mean, it is definitely a good price. I think I got mine for $5.99 or so, maybe even with shipping. You do get what you pay for. You have some weird little variations in the thickness, in the radius of that curve, etc. Yeah, not a great piece of wood. Also on the inside, where it's rounded out to accommodate these bands, it's splintered a little bit, so I had to get in there with a little box cutter just to get rid of some of those extra fibers. Again, you get what you pay for. It's a bit of an investment. If you are just getting into air rifles, it's certainly more expensive than something that's probably going to accomplish a lot more if you're looking to get into a hunting or long range or anything like that. But for backyard plinking, it's very accurate. The barrel shroud comes with about, I don't know, 7 or 8 cups to make a silencer there. What do you call them? Wipes. So it's pretty quiet, very accurate. Right now it's pumped up. It probably takes about 100 pumps to get it from 2,000 to 3,000 psi. That's another issue too. Careful what pumps you buy. Treat them very gingerly. Don't tax them. Don't let them get too hot. Do take your time with them because they're going to pump really hot really quickly, and you're going to break something inside. As I did with my first air pump. You'll also note that in a lot of the hand pumps that they sell online, they say they're water cooled, or that they have some kind of coolant liquid on the inside. 2 of the ones I bought so far do not. So be on the lookout for that. A lot of times they don't actually have the water coolant that they're supposed to have on the inside. Generally, I really dig this thing, but I hope people can find some value in my recommendations here, what I've done to it. It's really just a matter of getting rid of some of the slop that's in a lot of the parts. But once you do that, it's a lot of fun. Enjoy.